This is the In Real Time podcast, episode number 2. I'm your host, Ty Horgan. Welcome. I want to welcome everybody to the first video format of the show. Finally, we're able to get everything in order to be able to video this sucker. Last week, I couldn't really do it, so it was all audio only, but this will also be uploaded to Spotify and Apple Podcasts, as well as YouTube. Before we get into what we got to discuss today, I wanted to announce to everybody that, because most of the people that listen to this are in my area, I assume. But I wanted to announce to everybody that in the region of Southeast Texas, we are in a major burn ban right now. We've been in a burn ban for over a month at least, and just in the span of this last week, whenever I worked at the fire department on Thursday, we had 9 outside or grass fires just on Thursday. So for everyone who doesn't know if they have a burn ban or not, if you live in Brazos County, Grimes County, Houston County, Montgomery County, Polk County, San Jacinto County, Walker County, or Washington County, you have a burn ban. If you or anybody you know lives in those counties, please spread the message to stop burning. We do not want a repeat of 2011, where in Brazos or in Bastrop there was over 30,000 acres burned, and the same exact year in the same week or same month span in Magnolia, there was over 20,000 acres burned. We do not want a repeat of that. Please stop burning. Anyways, I've got with me today one of my good buddies since middle school, really, I think.
Yeah.
His name is Dalton Hunt. Everybody, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dalton, for being here, man.
Good to be here.
How you doing today, buddy?
It's a busy day, but doing good.
Yeah?
Doing good, yeah.
Yeah. How was 1488 coming over here? Same old 1488 with 500 freaking red lights.
Yeah.
Well, that's good, man. I'm glad to hear you're doing good. How's the kids?
They're crazy, feral. Wild animals around the house, but
yeah.
No, they're good. I mean, just growing like weeds, man.
Yeah. I can imagine. Stella's coming up on 2?
Almost 2. Yeah, almost 2 already.
Jeez. It's growing up too fast for me, man. I don't know.
Middle school, you know?
Next year in middle school.
That's what it feels like.
Okay. All right, well, let's get into kind of who you are, buddy. So tell me about your childhood, man. Where were you born at?
Well, I was born in Huntsville, Texas. My dad was doing various jobs at the time.
Like he always is, apparently.
Yeah, he does everything, you know. My mom was a school teacher, and my dad was from North Louisiana, and they both went to college together in East Texas Baptist University, and they met in college, and, you know, fell in love or whatever, and, you know, rest is history.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have to get into that.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
I turned out, and so, yeah.
So what kind of stuff were you doing growing up, like playing sports, doing various activities? What kind of stuff?
When I got, you know, my dad's avid in roping and riding
Right.
horses, and I've been on a horse since I was 2 years old and been roping since I could swing a rope.
Yeah.
And originally learned how to rope left-handed, and Dad's like, well, can't team rope that way. So taught me how to rope right-handed. So
wait, why can't you team rope left-handed?
well, you can, but you have to be only on the heel side.
Oh.
Because if you're a header, you have to turn left.
Oh.
So if you rope left-handed, you
Right.
rope him, and you dally with the right hand,
Yeah.
you're gonna go over yourself.
Oh.
So
you had to be like an all-time healer, basically,
Yeah,
was what
exactly.
you're saying.
But yeah, she's like, well, no, you're gonna be my hitter. So he taught me how to rope right-handed.
He's already recruiting you at the age of 5 or whatever.
That's it. So I did that quite a bit, and I didn't really. I got into baseball. Played baseball. My dad played college baseball and
Greg played college baseball?
did.
Where?
East
Oh,
Texas
ETBU?
Baptist. Yeah.
Oh, wow. I didn't even know that.
He's pretty good.
Yeah?
Yeah, he was I think he's a second baseman, first baseman, I'm not sure. But so I got pretty much into baseball and sports, pretty young. I didn't ever play. My parents didn't let me play football when I was like youth football. As far
Probably a good idea.
as no concussions.
Yeah.
When you're 6 years old.
Yeah. Whoops.
But I got into baseball. I love baseball. Played baseball till I was about 12, 13 years old. And I decided, it kind of wasn't for me anymore. I kind of got bored of it and just decided to just kind of go some other way. So I kind of got looking into other sports. I played golf. I've always kind of been, my grandpa was in.
Played golf?
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
For those of y'all that don't know why I'm laughing at that, the first time I went golfing with this dude, on the first tee, the very first hit, this guy takes his driver, brand new golf set, by the way.
I'm sweaty. My hands are sweaty.
He takes his driver on the first one, and you just see the driver go flying with a big old patch of dirt, and the ball barely rolls forward at all.
Went about 20 feet, all right?
Club went further than the ball, just to say that, but that was not the funniest thing that happened that trip.
A little rusty.
Yeah.
A little rusty, to say the least. But started playing golf in junior high, got on the golf team, and decided that, it's too boring for me. Needed to hit somebody. So in high school, I went and played football. Played football until I think my junior year. And
did you start playing football in high school? You didn't play in junior high?
I played in junior. I played sixth grade, like the flag football.
Oh, the intramurals. Yeah.
That's how I got introduced into football. And then
I gotcha.
I played in junior high. I was too small. In high school, I was just super small. So
yeah.
super small.
Yeah.
So I didn't get varsity. I wasn't in varsity. But
right. Freshman year, you were of course on the freshman team with pretty much all of us except for I believe Demarian.
Yeah. Freshman varsity, crazy dude.
Yeah. He. What position were you playing?
Receiver and corner. That's what I played.
Yeah.
So I like that. I like being receivers. I have big hands.
Yeah.
For me to catch the ball.
Big hands.
Yeah, big old hands.
Big old hands. All right. Cool.
Yeah.
How many years did you play football?
Throughout. I didn't play my senior year. I played through my junior year, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. High school was a long time ago.
Yes, it was.
I don't remember.
It was. You still have the calluses on your hands from those freaking monkey bars?
Right there.
Yeah. I told y'all. Go listen to episode 1. I go into those freaking monkey bars.
Yeah. And honestly, I will say this, for me, kind of going, skipping ahead in the story, going to the Marines, that strength and speed camp.
Oh, yeah.
Without a doubt, is the best thing. They didn't mean to do that, but it was the best thing that prepared me to go to boot camp. Mm-hmm. It was insane. I was like, this is just like strength and speed camp.
Right?
Marine Corps boot camp is the same thing as strength and speed camp.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was wild.
Yeah.
I honestly forgot about it until you brought it up on the podcast.
The off season?
Yeah.
How all that went? Yeah.
And then the anxiety I got showing up to the first 2 days.
You had, oh my gosh, I remember during off season, during the period, the field house was probably maybe 300 feet from the actual school.
Yeah.
And I think freshman year, I was in ag, the class period before athletics, and so we had to sprint from the ag barn all the way to the field house, and you had to be ready within or by the time the bell rung, right?
Yeah, it was like 5 minutes.
5 minutes, right? And oh my gosh, you had already had half a workout before you even got there, because once you got there, you had to be in line, you had to be hands behind your back, nobody out of line.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh gosh,
that's why
man.
It prepared me for the Marines.
Yeah.
The discipline aspect of, I know your West High School. For some reason, it's just military like that. It was weird.
Yeah, it was nuts, man.
Is different.
It is. It's another animal here in Texas. But anyway, so like you said, you were in the Marines. What when did you start entertaining the idea to go to the Marines?
Well, honestly, the first thing I wanted to do, I kind of got an interest in the military when I was like in junior high. You know, for some reason, I just kind of it's something I kind of wanted to pursue, and so I originally wanted to go in the Air Force, and that was my original plan was to go in the Air Force. And to go in the Air Force, you had to have like a governor's approval.
Uh-oh. Son of a bitch.
So, whoops.
Cut! That piece of duct tape up there is supposed to be where it's supposed to go. Hopefully it stays there now.
But anyways, like I was saying. But so yeah, in order to get in the Air Force, and I might have changed. Like when to my understanding, I had to get the approval, like an approval letter from the governor or some sort of state official. I can't remember.
Oh yeah.
So, like, I got all the way to that point where I got that letter, and I was like ready to go. Or that was to the academy, the Air Force Academy, or something.
Oh, okay. So like
that's what it was.
The Air Force Academy, isn't that just basically like a college for the Air Force?
Yes.
Sort of thing. Yeah. I got you. Like Navy and like West Point.
Yep.
Sort of.
Yep. It's in Colorado. So I was originally wanted to do that. But then I'm like, I don't know if I want to go to, I don't know if like college is for me.
Right.
And I didn't necessarily want to be an officer. If you go to the Air Force Academy, you obviously come out as an officer.
Right.
So then I started to pursue, like, there's this thing, it's like I forgot the name, but it's basically you're the ground force. You're basically you're the one talking on the ground to all of the fixed-wing aircrafts in the Air Force. You're basically calling in fires, like calling in close air support and all that stuff. You're like basically the
radio guy?
The Air Force liaison. You're attached to like different branches and units.
I got you.
And you go with them and patrol with them. And if they need like Warthog support or whatever, fixed wing support, and then you would call that in.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
And so that's what I wanted to do. And so I would go to the Air Force recruiter, and no one ever showed up.
Really?
Yeah.
Like at the office?
There was no one ever there. I went 3 separate times and 3 different times of the day. And finally, the third time, I'm like, it was in Conroe, right off 105 right there, and it was right next to the Marine Corps recruiting station, and then the doors were right. There's like Air Force, Navy, and they're all like right next to each other.
Right.
And so I was walking in the third time. I was sitting there waiting at the door, knocking on the door, and a Marine Corps recruiter heard me knocking the door the third time. He said, "Hey, you want to come and check us?"
Sure.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. And so I checked it out, and I was still in high school at the time. It's not like I could leave right away.
Right.
And so I kind of checked him out, and I liked what I heard, and they're like, well, what do you want to do? I said, well, I want to be in the infantry. If I joined the Marines, I want to be in the infantry because why not join the Marines?
Right.
If you're not going to push yourself to the
right. Yeah.
Because I'm not going to join the Marines just to go admin and sit behind a desk all day. But hey, that's what people want to do. I'm just saying that's not my mentality.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So he tried to talk me out of it. After you got you take your ASVAB to see if they can even talk to you.
Right.
And so I passed my ASVAB, and I qualified for a bunch of other jobs. I didn't score too high on the ASVAB, just kind of like mediocre, regular.
Right.
And just a bunch of other jobs because he wasn't in the infantry.
Oh my gosh! Just take it down.
Well, that was in there. But he wasn't in the infantry. He was like an aircraft maintenance guy or whatever. And he was like, "Are you sure you want to go in the infantry? Like that was pretty hard." I'm like, "Yeah, I know that's the reason I want to go."
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of the rest is history. I kind of joined it's called the Delayed Infantry Program, and because I was small, and I was still in high school, so I had to wait to graduate.
When did you do this? Like what year in high school?
It was 9 months before
you graduated?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So this was senior year. Okay.
Yep.
I gotcha.
Yep. I was
probably like December, or like January, somewhere around there.
Yeah, it was because I remember it was cold when I went to go work out, and we had to go work out. It's the most humiliating thing. The pulleys and everything go work out. Everyone has the same shirt, but you're like all high school kids, and you're all acting like military. I'm like, who am I playing military?
I'm playing Army Man
in the park, And so we did all these exercises. It was fun. That's what you had to do. It was like mandatory
Right.
to go to. And so I was in the delayed entry program for 9 months until I graduated. And
I didn't even know all this.
yeah, I was going to after school, and every Thursday evening I drove to Conroe and did a bunch of stuff.
So whenever you went to the recruiter, did you sign like paperwork then and there, or how long did that process take before you actually like enlisted, sort of? Did you have to wait that 9 months before, like, after you graduated, and then you could sign up?
No. So you can sign like a contingency kind of paperwork, but not until you go to MEPS in Houston.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like closer in. Like you basically in the delayed entry program, like you are set. Like this is what you want to do, and they say you can't get out of it since you already signed a contract, but you can until you sign the dotted line of your like legit contract that I'm going to go into the infantry at MEPS in Houston. Then that's until you can't get out of it. They really discourage you from getting out of it because of recruiters, and that's their job, just to recruit a quota of people.
Right, yeah.
And so they kind of discourage you. Like once you're in, but if you don't want to do it anymore, you can get out.
Yeah, I've heard a bunch of people that have enlisted. They've kind of told me that up until the point that you get on the plane or the bus to boot camp, you can say no. I'm not going.
Yes.
Yeah.
Once you're on the plane, you're kind of stuck.
Yeah, you're kind of stuck on the plane. They're not going to turn around just for you, basically.
Yeah. So yeah, that whole process was pretty smooth. I mean, they're like, I don't know if I want to admit this on a podcast, but they asked if I had any.
We'll cut it out if we have to.
No, they asked if I had any surgeries or any asthma and I broke my, in football I broke my femur.
Yeah.
And that was wild.
I remember that. And it was freshman year, right?
Sophomore year? No, freshman year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, was that freshman year?
I'm pretty sure it was freshman year.
I don't think it was freshman year. I think it was my sophomore year because I wasn't on the freshman team. I don't think. No, because I wasn't on the freshman team. I was on JV.
No. Either way.
Anyway, I don't know.
You still didn't tell them.
I didn't tell them. They're like, don't say. Well, the recruiter told me not to.
Yeah.
When you go to MEPS, like.
Oh, so then, hey, that's on that recruiter.
Exactly. You're watching this, sorry. No, but you're like, you've never smoked weed. He's like, you've never smoked weed before, right? And I'm like, no.
No.
He's like, no, you haven't, right? And I'm like, no, I legit haven't. He's like, good answer. I was like, okay.
Right.
But yeah, so stuff like that, they really, like, that's how it is,
Yeah.
So. And then at MEPS, they know you do that. The recruiter does that stuff. So at the very end, it's almost like an interrogation. And they don't tell you this is going to happen, but at the very end, they kind of set you in this room by yourself for like a good 20, 30 minutes. And it's just one light, like an interrogation.
Yeah.
And they're like, they come in all nice first, and they're like, so we're looking at your record too. You never done anything. Like, you don't have any medical issues, no surgeries or nothing. I'm like, no. They're like, are you sure? And I'm like, no. And they're like, you never smoked weed? Then they're like, we know you smoke weed. I'm like, do I look like I smoke weed? Like,
I'm a pastor's kid. I don't smoke weed. Well, some of them do.
But then they're like, come on, how many times?
Right.
How many times did you get? I'm like, I've never done it. So they try to grill you to disqualify you, So once you pass that interrogation process, you're in. So.
Yeah. Well, and obviously you passed it.
I passed.
You got past the test.
5 long years later, here I
am. So after MEPS is before boot camp, right?
Yeah, that's like you go down to Houston. That's like basically the finalized process. You get your physical done.
Is that where you swear in and everything?
That's where you swear in and do all that, and then you get your ship date, and from there, and then you go. So my ship date was right. I went to MEPS right after I graduated, and then my ship date was like the end of the summer, like September.
Gotcha.
September 5th was my ship date.
Gotcha.
My first day of boot camp was September 5th, 2016.
Okay. So obviously you're on your way to boot camp. Where was the boot camp at?
San Diego, MCRD San Diego. So
nice.
you get on a plane with literally, I've never gotten on a plane with no luggage before. So you get on a
Just
plane
there.
with just there, in a yellow envelope.
Yeah.
And you and 12 other people, 12 other lost puppies navigate the airport, and everyone's super nervous and scared. And
Yeah.
you get on the plane and get down, and you immediately go into San Diego International Airport, and it's this thing called the USO, and it's really right next to, like, you come out the plane, come down the escalators, and it's like right there outside, almost near the parking lot, next door to the airport. And so you're sitting at the USO, and all of a sudden these buses arrive. There's 4 buses that arrive, 4 white buses. And all of a sudden you see, that's the first look you get at the drill instructors, and you get out, and you're like super, super intimidated. You're like, oh my God.
So whenever they got out, were they like sprinting to y'all, like in the
No.
like some of those videos show?
So they're in public, right? So
I didn't think that mattered.
That's what I thought. But they're very respectful, not when they're not on base, because they're not going to cause a scene.
Yeah.
They don't want to get sued. So. I don't know what they do, but it's just kind of like a thing where, they wait till they're on the depot.
Right.
So they're stern, but they're not yelling at you. And so, like, this just kind of throws you off. So you get on the bus, and they tell you to put your head down, put your head, like, basically between your knees, and don't look up. Like, you can't look out the window, no talking, no nothing.
Damn.
It's basically they put a bag over your head.
Right.
Like
CIA tactics.
But because they don't want you to know that it's right next to the airport.
Oh,
so
okay.
They drive you around in circles for 45 minutes.
What?
I'm telling you, I like looked over. I'm like, I swear I've seen the streetlight before. Like,
the glimpses that you keep getting.
Yeah, because you kind of like look up. You're like so curious.
Yeah.
And and so you pull in, and then it's by the time it's like 12 o'clock at night, and you're super tired, but your day is just getting started. So you get in, and from there they tell you, they yell. That's when they yell at you, get off the bus, put your foot on those yellow footprints, and they basically give that speech. Man, I'm very surprised that I remember all this, because like now I'm talking about it, it makes me remember everything. But yeah, so they do all that. It's kind of the induction process, kind of culture shock to scare you.
Right. Yeah.
You go in these rooms with super bright fluorescent lights, and like the first step they do is I think they shave your head, and then that's like super like humiliating.
Right.
But you knew it was going to happen, so.
Yeah, I know a lot of I've seen a lot of people shave their heads prior to going, and I feel like they get made fun of a lot for doing that.
To bick your head, they'll shave it anyway, and you'll get cuts on your head. Because, like, if you come to one guy did that, he was bald already, and they still took a razor to his head.
Oh my God.
Because, I mean, you're not going to, what are you, special?
Right.
They want to tell, that's like the big thing of.
Put everybody on the same level.
Everyone is the same level.
Yeah.
You're not special just because you shave your head. You're not going to sit there
Gotcha.
over by the side. We're all one person, basically,
Right.
And so that is like everything I learned from boot camp. They teach you how to be a Marine, but they teach you how to be
team?
Not an individual.
Right.
You're not an individual. That's like a big thing. That they say. Why are you're not an individual? Why are you acting like an individual?
Right.
Because every punishment is a group punishment. There's no singular punishments. So if one guy messes up,
the whole team
everybody
has to be.
messes up.
Yeah.
And you get to hate that guy, but that guy won't mess up again.
Unless it's Private Pile and Jarhead eating the freaking jelly donut while everybody else is doing push-ups.
We had one of those guys one time.
Oh, really?
Well, he was peanut butter packets.
So he smuggled peanut butter packets into the
Put
barracks?
them under his pillow and eat them at night. But they have a watch, like there's one guy.
You just heard...
Dude, I'm telling you, we had this dude, and we're all sleeping, and we hear this like rustling around, and all of a sudden we just hear the lights flicker on. We're like, get the fuck up. We're like, what is going on? And they start counting. It's like the Marine thing. They just start counting like from really fast, and you have to get online in front of your rack, and you're like, everyone's so groggy. This one guy's just like,
it's like chocolate on his freaking on his face. Oh my God!
Like, this is contraband. Like he was just saying a bunch of stuff, but I just thought that. But dude, there was times in boot camp where you kind of once you're like first 2-3 weeks in boot camp, you kind of figure out their game. Where it's all a game.
Yeah.
Like they have a schedule that they look at every day, and you have no conception of time. Like
Right.
you don't have any, you don't have access to a watch.
Oh.
Like, you have no watch. You have no.
They don't have a clock in the barracks or nothing?
Nope, on
Oh,
purpose.
wow.
They do it on purpose because you're the beck and call of them. You don't need to know what time it is. They tell you what to do.
The only person that needs to know
Is
is
the drill instructor.
Oh, okay.
And so you just basically at the mercy of them.
Right.
But you can kind of guess. I mean, you can look at the sun, you know. Like,
If you can tell time from the sun,
you know,
yeah.
But
You can tell if it's like noon or afternoon.
you know, you can kind of pick up on cues. It's kind of like you're being held prisoner, and you're like this guy. Okay, you kind of learn their patterns.
Mm-hmm.
So where like every morning we wake up around the same time. Excuse me, and we get messed with. We just get fucked with.
Right.
And for like it seemed like forever, but it's only like say we only got messed with like for 45 minutes. And then we go to lunch, and then we'd sit in line for lunch, and we'd eat for 45 minutes. And from there, you know, we have time to kill, so that's when they mess with us.
What kind of things would they do? Like for you for example, how did you get messed with?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like as a group, like they would just like a big thing they like to do is take us back to the barracks. And it's called a scuzz brush, and basically it's like a broom or a brush, like a horse brush, with a wooden handle, and it's a white brush.
Right.
And they tell you scuzz, and to basically you sit down, or you're on your hands and your feet like in a bear crawl, but you have the scuzz brush right there, and you have to walk with the scuzz brush and go back and forth, and like you have to. It's basically brushing, like sweeping the barracks, sweeping.
Oh, damn!
So stuff like that we do. Or
I remember in off season we did something kind of like that. Whenever it rained outside, we would get towels. We did this in junior high. No, it was just in high school. We would get, you know, the little white, you know, thin ass towels that they gave us, and we would have to bear crawl. We would have to slide on, like, in the locker room, going around with the towel. So it's sort of like that.
It's almost exactly. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
But so everything that you do is timed.
Okay.
There's no. They always count. It's always counting. It's always counting. You have to do it within their time frame, and if you don't, you go back, do it again. But if you don't, it's an unrealistic count. You're never going to do it in time because they don't count fair.
Yeah.
They're not like 1, 2. You know,
1, 2, 3, 4.
Like, it's they just count backwards. If they make you, like, here's an example. They'll give you like 300 seconds to get dressed in the morning. And like 300, and it's 300 ISR, and they count down from 300 to 200 like regular. But then they get bored, and they're 200, and then they're like 100, and then it's like, you know what I mean? So,
oh, gotcha.
So they get, you know, it's kind of, you never get it done.
Right.
But back to kind of what I was saying. So the craziest couple of punishments I think will still remember to this day is some guy, we went to some formation or something where we left our squad bay. And someone left their footlocker, because you get a footlocker with all your belongings at the end of your bed, and they left it unlocked. It's a combination lock. You have to remember your combination lock. If not, I mean, you're screwed.
Yeah.
So he left it unlocked, and every time we leave, they you know, inspect the barracks to make sure everything's locked and everything's, you know, squared away. And so we come back, and our whole squad bay is like a tornado.
Oh, they turned it upside down.
Our beds are displaced. All of our belongings are on the grounds. They take every one of our footlockers, dumped it out with like all of your personal belongings, and that's what got to me the most. That's why I was like, these guys are assholes.
Yeah.
But they do it on purpose to
make you think exactly
because,
that.
Dude, nothing really worked on me. I promise. Like I thought of it more. I got more aggravated than.
Right.
Like you know what I mean? I'm kind of like really go with the flow.
Oh yeah.
And I'm kind of very like, if you're gonna do that, you can do it. I mean, whatever. I can't do anything about it.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
But that's the only. If you mess with my stuff, like my personal belongings, I had like letters in there I was gonna send out that all like got messed up. I had like my personal belongings, like the wallet and everything that you bring. It's like it's like a little green bag, and you put all your personal belongings in. You're not allowed to touch till you're ending. but that was scattered everywhere, and that's like what the only thing that got me.
Yeah.
I was like, I was heated. I was so
He
mad.
got me.
And I was like, then after the fact, I'm like, it really that worked on me,
Yeah.
And I was like, man, these guys,
they know what they're doing.
Yeah. And so they know how to get everybody,
Yeah.
But what they did was they threw everybody's stuff on the floor. And they told everybody to clean it up. I'll never forget that. We were all scrambling, clean it up, and you have your shower shoes, black flip-flops.
Right.
From that point on, I had 2 right black flip-flops. And I could not ever find the person with the 2 left.
So you always just had to wear those the
From
right.
that point on, yeah, I could not find.
How long was that into boot
It
camp?
was halfway.
Half.
And there were 2 different sizes. It was so funny. I was like, what am I doing?
Well,
But
that means somebody's out there with 2 lefts.
I know, and I still have those 2 right black flip-flops.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
But they took everybody's locks.
Uh-huh.
And they put a giant, they locked it all together in a giant ball. And they had, you have 1,000 seconds to
unlock
find
those.
your lock.
Oh,
and it's like
gosh.
70 people in a squad bay. And it's just think of a lock ball of everyone's locks this big, I was like, this is some creative punishment right there. That is some creative punishment. And then the other time was the most creative punishment I've seen, and I've never even thought about it before. But some dude kept messing up, and he just could not get it right. So this dude, he told him to get a wash rag, like a kind of a longer wash rag, not the small ones, but kind of like this, like a towel rag.
Yeah.
And they told him to go wet it to make sure no water drips out at once. Kind of wring it out to where it's still wet, but no water's dripping out.
Right.
And they told him to hold it out in front of his sides and then roll it up with just his fingers. And I'm like, that's easy, But they didn't tell him to stop.
Oh.
Until like 3 hours later. And he's still sitting there, like his forearms are on fire. And he's sitting there by himself, just sitting there rolling it up. I was like, that's got to be the worst punishment I think I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So,
something small and monotonous like that just gets you after 3 hours of doing it.
A 1 pound dumbbell, out with your arms. Like, it's not going to hurt for 20 minutes, but 3 hours later, it'll hurt pretty bad.
Gotcha. That sounds like fun. No, I'm just kidding. That does not sound like fun.
It was a good time.
How long was it? It was like 3 months, right?
13 weeks.
13 weeks?
13 weeks, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So you go through boot camp. You get through all of it. You graduate and all that kind of stuff. How does the job selection process work? Because I've heard a few different stories, and I still don't really understand how that whole thing works.
Yeah. So that happens is when you're signing your contract, you have to make sure that the job you want is actually that job you're going to get. Okay. And that happens to a lot of people to where recruiters are assholes, and they basically tell them the entire time that you're going to get this job, and they sign them up for infantry.
Right.
Or they sign them up because the job.
I heard that story a lot. Yeah.
And so people come into boot camp thinking they have another job, and then in the boot camp, they read you your MOS.
Right. They assign it to you.
Like, that's not my MOS. And they're like, sorry, that's what you got for 4 years, Like, there's nothing they can, they literally said your recruiter fucked you then, and then they're like, bye,
Wow.
And so that's your job for 4 years, so that kind of sucks. That kind of puts people off of the military a lot.
Yeah.
That kind of ruins
people. Is that how it works, across the board, in most of the branches?
See, I can't say for most branches, but I know I think in the Army that I've heard some stories that happens.
Yeah.
But what happens is people come in. A big thing is that the people come in, they don't know what they want to do, and they're like, well, then the recruiter's like, well, get an O3X, the open contract. And an open contract is basically your undecided. It's basically your undecided major in the college.
Okay.
Right. But instead of getting to choose down the road what you get to do, once you get to boot camp and you're done with boot camp, that's kind of a turkey shoot of
where you're going to.
MOS is open and where they need you. And all the ones where they need you are not the ones that anybody wants to go to.
Yeah.
Because it's the people that they don't have many people.
Uh-huh.
And so you could be like there's one guy in boot camp who was an open contract. He was like I can't remember the word, but he was like a water tester, like a water purify specialist or something. And he was like, oh, man. Like audibly, oh, man.
Oh, man.
I was like, you didn't know that going in? He's like, no, I was open contract. Like,
oh, gosh.
that's terrible, dude.
Man, so they don't. So they can't. Do they judge it by like your scores that you get on your tests as you're going through boot camp or anything like that?
You do that by choosing your job. Like you can qualify, like how high you score on your ISVAB is kind of the number of jobs that you qualify for. And your ISVAB is just not one score. Like you have your, like say you get a 56. That's your like overall score. Then you have your mechanical knowledge, your general knowledge, your like combat knowledge, or stuff like I don't know if it's combat knowledge, but it's like stuff like that. That's like broken down other scores. Like you can have like out of 150 or something like, I don't want to say the wrong thing, but it's specific numbers for each proficiency, you know, and
so
those are what you qualify for different jobs.
Okay.
So like for infantry, you have to have a general GE score of like
it's like really low,
110.
isn't it?
No, it's actually not. Like if you get under 100, you can't qualify for infantry.
Oh.
So it's kind of a misconception that anyone qualifies for infantry because.
Yeah, that's. Oh, okay, that makes sense because I always understood that like infantry is like the bottom of the, you know,
that's how
anybody can do it.
But when you think of the Marines and you think of everything that happens in the Marines, every job in the Marines is to support the infantry. You have logistics, you provide materials and support for the infantry. Even like machine gunners support for the riflemen.
Right, yeah.
The mortarmen support for the machine gunners due to support for it's like kind of like an all top-down effect.
Okay.
You know, artillery.
That makes sense, yeah.
Everything does is circled around supporting the infantry. For the riflemen, I should say.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Gotcha. So you get through boot camp, like I said. What job did you end up getting?
I got infantry mortarman.
Nice.
Which I had no clue what that was when I started. And I didn't know.
Right.
I wanted to be in the infantry, but I didn't know how that worked. No one ever explained it to me. So once you get in, I finished boot camp. You go to leave. Like you get on leave for 2 weeks, and then you get your orders to go to Camp Pendleton or wherever. Like,
isn't it like AI training or something, like advanced individual training or something like that?
So that's AIT. That's I think that's the Army.
That's the Army. Okay.
That's AIT is the Army, or Army and the Navy. I think they have AIT.
Okay.
But the Marine says MCT. It says Marine Combat Training. That's where all the non-infantry units go.
Okay.
And so
But you're technically infantry, right?
Yeah. And
so you would not go to that one.
You go to ITB. So it's
ITB.
Infantry Training Battalion.
Gotcha.
So
where's that at?
It's in Camp Pendleton.
Camp Pendleton, California.
Well, there's one in Camp Pendleton and there's one in Camp Lejeune.
Lejeune is where?
North Carolina.
North Carolina. Okay. Yeah.
So everyone. So you know, have you heard the saying? Every Marine is a rifleman, right?
Yeah.
So the way we do that is, you know, when you're in the Army, you go to your school, or you go to boot camp, and then you go to your job school, right? But in the Marines, you go, say you're like a supply. You go to boot camp, and then you go to MCT. And so MCT is like 3 months, I think. It might be longer now. Excuse me. You go to Marine Combat Training, and you learn basic infantry skills. And so technically every Marine is a rifleman, so you go to that first, and then you go to your job school. So no matter what MOS you have, you go through technically infantry training. Whether that's you come out proficient in infantry training, that's kind of, you know.
Up in the air?
Yeah, up in the air, but, you know, everyone goes through it, so it's kind of different than the Army and the Navy do it.
Right.
Not everyone has combat training in the Army or the Navy, you know.
Yeah.
But as for the infantry, it's kind of an elongated course, you know, because it's your main job. I think it's like 3-4 months or something like that. So the first half of that is you're just learning basic infantry tactics, and then you're like you're in the field all the time. You know, you're just learning battle plan. You know, learning how to maneuver. You know, how to shoot, how to, you know, take cover. You know, stuff. Just basic things.
Yeah.
Throw a grenade.
Yeah.
You shoot. You know. You know, set up a claymore, all that stuff like that. And then from there, it's called a split. It's halfway in. And that's when you go and you choose, basically you could choose or voluntold your job in the infantry. So you can either be a mortarman, you can be a machine gunner, you can be a assaultman, which is actually phased out, can't be an assaultman anymore, or you can be a tow gunner. And so that's basically the guys on the back of the Humvee shoot the tow missiles.
Okay.
So that's what I wanted to do, was to be a tow gunner. But the way it works is it was every other company. So I was Delta Company, and they had assaultmen. So it was mortars, machine guns, assaultmen in their company. And so tow gunner was out of the question. I couldn't even get tow gunner if I wanted to. It's just the luck of the draw.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, I want to be an assaultman because like they blow stuff up all the time, you know.
Yeah.
I like explosives. And stuff like that.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
But then they didn't want me. They're like, no, like you don't have, like they had everyone. It's basically like a draft, you know. And so then I was kind of coming towards the end, and I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew I didn't want to be. My experience at the first half, I was just basic infantry rifleman. I'm like, that sucks. I don't want to do that. They're just in the field all the time, and like, if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do, and that's what people like to do. But it's just, you know, if I could do something else to be proficient at, you know, I'd like to do that. Just like it's like kind of like the basic stuff. If I could learn more things and do the basic stuff, you know, that'd be cool. You know, I'd like to do that. And so I was thinking at mortars, and then all of a sudden I realized, one day I was in formation. They're like, they said my name, and they're like, all right, you're the mortar squad. I'm like, oh, okay. And so
cool.
That's how I was mortars. So
Cool.
Yeah.
1 second. Pause. Cut. I'm gonna check something. Ugh. Yeah, we're still rolling. It's 22 minutes. I think we're like 45 minutes in or something like that.
Dang.
Which is good.
Yeah.
I think it's going pretty good so far.
I think so.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm talking a lot.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of like what I'm, you know, trying to do with this portion of it, and then we'll get into back and forth stuff.
Yeah.
All right. So you go through you said IPT training?
ITB.
ITB training.
Yep.
You get assigned the job of a mortarman. So what happens next? Like as far as deployments, when do you know like where you're first going to go? You know, how does that whole process work?
Yeah. So I mean, from when you graduate ITB, the last day of ITB, kind of like boot camp, you get stat. You stand in the line, and they basically go down the list. It's alphabetical, and like you're going to, you know, 2-1. You're going to 3-1. You're going to, you know, 1-4. You know, all those places. So I was in Camp Pendleton, so it was kind of like the 1st Marine Division, the 2nd Marine Division. All those people are in the same area, but you could go to the choices you could go to are 29 Palms, Hawaii, Camp Pendleton. Those are the 3. And I kind of didn't want to go. I definitely didn't want to go to 29 Palms.
Yeah. Shout out Blake. He's at 29 Palms right now.
Bless his heart. That's terrible. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy.
Yeah, he's a corpsman there.
Yeah. So, I spent a lot of time at 29 Palms, even though I didn't want to be there. But a lot of training and stuff goes there. So you could be there. You could go to Hawaii or Camp Pendleton, and I didn't want to go. Believe it or not, I didn't want to go to Hawaii.
Why?
Because you think you're on an island, so you station there, and plane tickets are expensive to get back. It's like $1,300 to get back to the.
And if the military don't pay for it?
Not if you want to go on leave. You know, like say you want to go home.
Yeah.
You have to drop $1,300 just to drive, you know, to fly home. You know,
so that makes
that's
sense.
what I was thinking, and so I was like, it'd be fun for a little bit to be on an island, but there's almost so much you can do on an island.
That's true.
In
Yeah.
4 years. You know? So I was like, I just want to go. It'd be cool if I just got Camp Pendleton. You know, I've already been here. I know kind of where everything is. And then all of a sudden, it was like alphabetical, you know, and they're like 29 Palms, 29 Palms, 29 Palms, 29 Palms. I'm like, oh my God. And then it was like Hawaii. I'm like, oh, that's not bad. And
yeah.
Hawaii. And it was like 29 Palms, 29 Palms.
Oh God, it came back
right next to me. I'm like, no. And then all of a sudden, I was the first one. It was like 1-1, Bravo Company, Camp Pendleton. I'm like, oh my God. I just lucked out so hard.
Yeah.
So
is that your first deployment?
No, so that's like I got assigned to my unit.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So that's where you go to your unit, and then my unit was like less than a mile down the road. It's in Camp Porno, and I kind of got assigned to my new unit.
Gotcha.
And that's where the real Marine Corps happens.
Oh yeah.
And,
what does that mean? The real Marine Corps.
Well, you know, you have people just coming back from deployment, and a lot of the guys came back from combat, and you learn what you learn in school, but that's not really what you do in the unit.
Yeah,
because every unit has their own SOPs, like standard operating procedures. So like,
Gotcha.
you learn a basic generalized fundamentals, you know how to be a Marine, you know how to be a basic infantryman or a basic mortarman, but it's completely different than what you do in the fleet.
Right.
And
Yeah, that's kind of how the fire department works as it pertains to full-time guys. Like, I currently am working to get full-time, but the guys that I've talked to that have been full-time for years now, they all say that, yeah, you're going to go through fire school and you're going to get a basic understanding of how to do things, but departments have different ways of doing things.
Yep.
And sometimes it varies from station to station in the department. Sometimes the departments are really good and that standard is applied across the whole department.
Yeah.
Sometimes every single station does something different from every other station in the same department.
Yeah.
But you're learning the same. You're learning that way, or that department's or that station's way of doing the job that they want you to do it, instead of like, yeah, this is the way you roll out a hose or the way you roll up a hose in fire school, but we're going to teach you something that's faster, that's more efficient, that's easier, and so yeah, I can definitely understand that whole aspect.
Yeah.
Of it.
So I mean, and a big aspect of that is, kind of the culture shock of coming from a student aspect to a fleet, like student Marine Corps to fleet Marine Corps. Like, you're no longer a student. Well, you are a student, but it's like there's no curriculum. It's your seniors, right? So your senior enlisted guys who are a lot of times lance corporals, like E3s, like only like 2 ranks above you. They're not NCOs, but like they're squad leaders, and those are the guys who not necessarily have something to prove. They just want to be really, really hard on you, and for a reason. When you get into combat, it's not going to be, it's not it's not orchestrated.
Right.
Like it's chaos.
Like, it's no longer controlled training. This is
just anything
can happen now.
They want you to be organized in chaos.
Yeah.
And you can hate your seniors however passionate they can haze you. Because when I first got in, hazing was a big thing, and it was just kind of like looked away, like it was kind of turned away. And now, through the course of my Marine Corps career, that basically was like a 180. It was completely obsolete, this hazing. Especially
Now,
it was my unit.
So, like, hazing, whenever you say that, is that like, because we definitely got hazed whenever I first got in and everything like that for the fire department. I don't know how the hazing went with you guys, but it was like a lot of like, I mean, sort of small pranks, but also stuff that would kind of mess with you a little bit. But how were the different ways that you got hazed?
So, I don't want to get too much into it because it's kind of, some of it's pretty bad. But one of the things we did is, when you go into you kind of grow your hair back, and you're like really proud of your hair, because I don't want to say like hair is like it's just hair, but like you shaved your head for 13 weeks, and now you're finally getting your hair back in ITB, right? And then when you go into the fleet, it's like customary for you to have your head shaved. But then we're like, nah, we're not doing that.
Right.
I'm not shaving my head. But that's like,
Again.
that was the thing. Like, everyone did it. Everybody did it. And I'm not saying I was hazed in that way.
Yeah.
And I understand that that's like a new, like you're a boot, right?
Right.
You've never deployed, you don't know anything. And so from a senior enlisted inspector, not senior enlisted, but a prior enlisted perspective who spent 5 years in the Marine Corps, I understand where the people were coming from, but their seniors, those guys' seniors were like coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan. So the way they treated them was 10 times worse than what they treated. So they were like lighted. It was light compared to what they got treated, right?
Gotcha.
But it was still like they were just assholes. I mean, these people weren't like friendly, And so we kind of just, a lot of times we kind of just rebelled against that, because I was like, why are we listening to these people? But it's not like we could do anything about it.
Right.
Like, these guys are the ones to teach you how to do things in the fleet. And so, like, to an extent to where I have a certain respect towards them, I don't condone what they did, to us.
Right.
And so a lot of stuff I don't want to go into necessarily today, but I could see why they did it, to prepare us, but there's definitely different ways that could have been.
So it wasn't like necessarily playful hazing.
No.
Gotcha.
It was malicious hazing. Like, it wasn't like, and I'm not saying it was like completely crazy,
right?
You know,
yeah.
like it wasn't like life
They
or
didn't kill
death.
anybody.
No,
not in your case at least.
No. But I mean, there was like, you know, there's a lot of cases to where like a unit beforehand, or a guy came before me with the same seniors. I would just use that as an example. They got them. They were really drunk, and they spray painted a target on his back, and they started throwing darts. They just threw darts at his back, you know, and
Damn.
he wasn't like, he couldn't do it. Like, they held him down, you know, like he couldn't
Oh,
move, and
yeah.
like he wasn't like in on it, you know, like they were just being assholes and stuff like that. Like,
Gotcha.
but they got kicked out. Like, that was like, okay, that's like, you can't do that. Right?
Yeah.
So the people who,
And it's different if it was like, this is something that everybody's done in this thing. This is like something that brings us together.
Right.
Everybody's done this. So, and whenever they tell you that sort of thing, it makes you want to do it because you want to be a part of the team. You want to be able to be on the same level with those guys. You want to earn their respect by doing it.
Yeah.
But if it's just like, okay, yeah, we're doing this to you, and they're just doing it against your will, like, yeah, that's different.
It's just yeah. So like, as far as shaving my head, like, I understood that.
Yeah.
Like, everyone shaved their head. You don't grow hair until you have your first deployment, and that's
Gotcha.
like that was like an unspoken rule when you go into the unit. You're a brand new boot.
I get that. That makes sense.
You don't deserve hair until you know, it's stupid, but you know, that's what everybody does. And we were like, whatever, you know. They explained that to us, and we're fine, you know. But the way they went about it, they were just too excited to get new guys, you know.
Yeah.
And so I'm just kind of leaving it alone. But
Gotcha.
yeah.
Okay. So, where did you go on your first deployment?
My first deployment was on the 31st MEU to it was called the Marine Expeditionary Unit, and we were contingently. We basically patrolled the Indo-Pacific region so we stayed in Okinawa. We were kind of set there, and then from there, that deployment, you were supposed to get on a boat from you're only supposed to stay in Okinawa for like a month, and then get on a boat and basically patrol.
Oh, wow.
Like, around the South China Sea. You supposed to patrol North Korean waters. That's when Trump was in office, and it was very aggressive towards North Korea. And North Korea was doing show of force, and we were actually part of a show of force against North Korea, which is pretty cool. You go out on the smoke deck of the ship, and you see, like, you look out, and all you see is just like U.S.
U.S. ships
and carriers. Ooh. And like,
yeah,
like, oh my god. But then you see, if you're to your left, you see Russia and China. You see the Russia and China's flags. Gotcha. And you're just like, this could get scary real fast, because it's in the middle of the ocean. Like, you know, and as a Marine on a boat, you don't really do much. You're just basically contingent to where you're called a battalion landing team. So if anything happens, you're the first ones on the ground to go, because you're the closest. That's why they put you on those ships, because they want Marines as close as possible to potential threat as possible. You know, for them to get.
So like sort of like a D-Day situation.
Sort of like say, okay, so during that time, North Korea was threatening to attack South Korea again, or whatever the circumstance was. They were doing show of force, and they wanted to retaliate against South Korea and the United States. If that were to happen, we were within an hour away of the coast of South Korea. And so within 2 hours, we would be boots on the ground, ready to go, and we would be defending the borders of South Korea, or attacking North Korea,
right.
whatever the case may be. But the problem with that is we are a battalion landing team, so it's not just infantry units. We have artillery. We have a bunch of attachments that are with us in this team. And so we have, like, I'd say 1,000, 1,500 Marines in this battalion landing team. And so that's would be 1,500 Marines. I don't want to. I want to say an approximate number.
Right. Yeah.
To attack that, along with South Korean forces. But the closest, like, we were the closest ones, and the closest reinforcements we had were in in the Middle East, I think, or somewhere where it would have been taken like at least 24 hours for them to get. And so we would be like the only ones there for an extended period of time before we got any reinforcements. And so that was kind of a crazy thought to think about. And during that entire time, they hyped us up so much. They were like, "We're going to war. We're doing this."
Oh gosh!
Like I
guess because you want everybody to be ready. You know.
I don't know what it was, but they just hyped us up so much. Like they were just like, "Be ready, guys. You know, this could happen in moments." Maybe it honestly was that close. You know, but honestly, they said it so many times. We're like, they're just blowing smoke up our ass. You know, like
yeah. And then Trump goes to North Korea, the first president that crosses the DMZ, and
you're like, what? That's
exactly what we probably wouldn't be doing.
Exactly. So, you know, that's it. Kind of makes you wonder, kind of, what was the actual intel on that,
right?
And because it wasn't just like our commands telling us like, oh, we're getting this from higher. It was like 3-4 star generals. We had a whole amphitheater of people telling us to get ready. You know, this is what could potentially happen, and you know. We were excited,
right?
You know, so that I wasn't ever scared, you know, to do it. You know, this is what we trained for, and I was like, we were like ready to do it.
Yeah.
But when you think about it, you're like, if this is actually what you're going to do, you're 1,500 Marines against the entire North Korean army, and the closest reinforcements is 24 hours away.
Like it's just y'all.
And it's just us.
Yeah.
And you think of like the reality of an invasion or a defensive invasion is like 65% casualty rate. You know, like it's pretty high. It's over 50% casualty rate.
Right.
You like think of that, and then plus 24 hours before reinforcement, you're like, oh.
Yeah, you got all these like the whole dichotomy of being ready to actually do the job that you're trained for, but also the reality is setting in that whenever you do actually get to do the job that you're trained for, the probability of you dying increases tenfold.
Yeah.
And so
exactly.
Yeah, you got that whole dichotomy going on in your head at that moment. That's a pretty interesting circumstance right there.
Yeah, and I feel like you can relate that to firefighting. You know, like you train for, you know, being a firefighter for however long you train for it, and then you say like your reaction to go on your first fire. You know, that jitter, that feeling of anxiousness to like, you know, you might not have been thinking about it, but in the back of your mind, you're like, what you know, the stuff that what might could happen, you know.
Right. I mean, so yeah, a little bit. So the difference is, I would say, because you guys were getting constantly amped up about going to war, so you got a lot of time to kind of think about your mind with it. You know, you got a lot of time to stew on it because you're not actually there. It's just like, okay, the reality is getting higher and higher and higher that we're going to go. So now you have time to think about all this stuff. On my first fire, it was at 4 a.m. in the morning. I was dead asleep.
Yeah.
I wake up and we're there in less than 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So I have to make sure, like the biggest thing that I'm worried about is, do I have my gear on right? Because I don't want to get hurt whenever I go in there. I don't want to be a liability to the guys on my crew or the guys that were on scene at the time, because we weren't first in. But, and whenever you get there, honestly, it's not a thought in my head comes into mind that, okay, yeah, I'm gonna die. I could die here. It's just like, you just react. This is exactly what I've been waiting for. It's the first phase of what you're talking about. The whole dying thing that never really comes into effect. You know, it could if a 2011 event happened out here again, and okay, yeah, you're gonna go into this
like a sustained event happened.
Yeah,
and
like okay,
have time to plan for it.
Yeah, and fire scenes are usually really, really short for houses, at least. You know, there's obviously like big apartment fires, like in Houston. In Houston, I can imagine it's really different.
Yeah.
But out here, you know, there's smaller homes that catch on fire and stuff like that. So, you know, you're usually like you're on scene usually there for 4 to 6 hours, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter. So, but the biggest, like the part where it's the most anxious or the most like exciting is the first like 10 minutes is whenever you're there, you're putting the fire out or you got victims trapped, then you're like really amped up. You're like, okay, we're not going in with water, we're going in to save people. So, you know, you got that whole aspect to think about it too. So It's a little different from your situation in that respect because we have less time to think about it whenever we get called to go out there versus you guys. Y'all are saying, or they're telling y'all that we're going, like, be ready to go, and then you're like, all right, yeah, cool, and then you're like, oh, wait a second, that means this whole thing.
Yeah, well, I think I can relate that to, like, actually being in like a firefight.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so like you're there for a reason. Like say you're deployed in Iraq, Afghanistan, like you're there for extended amount of time. You've been going on patrols, so you haven't gotten anything, and then all of a sudden, you just get hit by an ambush or hit by an IED.
Yeah, you don't have time to think about you dying. It's just you're there.
And that's the best thing that I can say to people who get put into. That's the best thing that anyone says is to people who get put into like crazy situations of like everyone's like, what are you thinking, and you're like, you don't think, you just react.
Because honestly, I think it's if you're thinking too much about it, you're going to you're not going to be able to do your job correctly.
Exactly. You revert back on your training that you've been trained, and
right.
Your muscle memory, and the thing you've been training on for so long is finally happening.
Yeah.
And most of the time people don't even remember it, you know, like because they just reacted so much and their brain just shuts off.
Right.
And you just react to the situation. And I think that's the best way to handle a lot of situations. It's just...
And there's something really interesting about what you're talking about, because I was listening to a podcast with Jocko Willink, it's one of my favorite ones, and he had, I think it was Mike Glover, and he was talking about the sort of the aspect of whenever you're in battle, like in a firefight, and people who react in a way that is, you know, they freeze up, and it's not because they want to freeze up. That's just your mind. Yeah, it's your fight or flight response. They were going into that whole thing, and he was describing a story where this guy that was I think he was an interpreter for them, and they had been in many firefights, many of them, and they get ambushed this one time. I think it was an ambush or something. I'm paraphrasing, of course. But the interpreter guy has been there. He was solid. He was always with them. You know, he was there. He was usually the first one there. All that kind of stuff. They never had a problem with it. But this guy, they were in some kind of like hole or something, taking cover, and he stands up, and the first thing he sees is a guy with a AK on top of this roof, aiming right at him, and then he starts getting shot at. And the first thing that he does is he falls down and he gets in a fetal position.
Yep.
Even though he's already experienced this so many times, it's like he didn't have a choice in that moment, and it just happened like that. And so, but in the same respect, whenever you get into those situations, some people will. It sounds kind of bad. Some people will act cowardly. 100%. And they will realize that this is not what they're not built for this. This is not what they want to do.
Yep.
And those guys usually, you know, quit. They ask for transfer. They'll go to a different job. They'll do something like that.
Yep.
Because they just weren't meant for that. And I firmly believe that most people weren't meant for, or a lot of people could, if they just push themselves through it, they could withstand it. But some people just absolutely can't do it.
I think all it is mental.
Yeah.
You know, it's your mental fortitude, and then how you react in those situations is like that shows your true character, right? So like if you are mentally ready and you go in mentally alert and ready to literally face it, but like you said, you react, and so I feel like you react in the way of like I said, like the people's true nature of like either fight or flight. And if you have it, like people can, and that's what I think Marine Corps training is a lot of the times tries to reenact.
Especially whenever y'all do like live fire exercises.
Especially when we do live fire. and there's nothing you can do. Nothing you can do. You can do all kinds of training. There's nothing you can do that can replicate that feeling.
Right.
And no matter what, however, without shooting each other actually with real bullets, like, you know, with that fear of I'm going to lose my life if one bullet hits, you know what I mean? Like stuff like that. There's nothing you can do to do that.
Right.
To switch that up. So.
Gotcha. And so, kind of fast forwarding a little bit, when did you meet your lovely wife Theo? Whenever you were in the military, because you met her while you were in San Diego, right?
Yeah, I had just got back from Japan.
From your first deployment?
From my first deployment, my 31st MEU, and it was 2018, and Actually, when I got back, they wanted me to enroll into a school. It's called Advanced Mortimer's course.
Okay.
And I was very fortunate to be chosen because it's it's very hard school to get into. It's
Like you have to be selected to or offered to go there.
Well, you don't really apply to go there. It's kind of like you get kind of chosen, like from your unit chooses you to go.
Gotcha.
And they basically what you do is right now I was a mortarman. I was working on a gun, right? And so we could save this. You can go pretty lengthy into the inner workings of a mortar.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just a tube. You just plop. I mean, basically what it amounts to. But in order to control the fires, there's a lot of math. And trajectory and everything involves. And so that's basically the advanced mortarman's course. It's what it teaches.
It gets you like really, really in-depth knowledge about the true science behind it.
Yes, but it basically puts you in a leadership position to be able to control those fires.
Ah, okay,
so
that
like
makes
right
sense.
now, like before I did that, I was just a you call him a gun monkey. You know, I was just a gun monkey. I was dropping rounds. You know, I was a gunner and a gunner is what you could be.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you go to AMC, it's where you learn. Like it's like a plotting board, and it's like you learn how to control the fires. It's basically like this big flat board with a big circle with grid squares on it, and it basically acts as a compass and a map at the same time. You basically draw your own, and it has mil dots and azimuths on it, right? And so basically, I'm not going to go into all that.
Right.
That's what you learn at AMC.
Okay.
And so that you basically become a fire. It's called a FDC chief, and you can be. It's called a fire direction control. And so that's where you learn to do all that stuff.
Gotcha.
So it's a very, very hard school. It's very in the mortar community. If you want to go into leadership, you have to have AMC.
That's where you have to go.
That's kind of like looked at as like, have you gone to AMC?
Mm.
You know, and if you haven't, then you don't necessarily get to look down on, but like that's like almost a prerequisite to get into a leadership position.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very prestigious thing to get into. And so I had the opportunity to go, but at the time, I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to go because my mindset wasn't right. So like I just got back from deployment, and what they slotted me to go is right when I had my leave scheduled. I hadn't been home in like 8 months.
Right.
But then they wanted me to go to AMC, and it was already like not something I could get out of. They'd already scheduled it for me. Like the 2 weeks I had slated, and everyone was going on leave, and it would have denied my leave.
Oh.
And I didn't go home. And I had to go, but then I failed AMC because I'm like, why would I go if you just I just had that mindset. I'm like, I'm not going to do this for y'all. Like I can't even go home. I haven't been home in 9 months, you know? And so I kind of had a bad attitude towards that. And so I waited a little bit. I can't remember. It was during the summer that her brother is actually, she has, I'm going to get this wrong. I'm on the spot. So she has 4 brothers.
Theo, you better watch it.
No, no, she has 4 brothers, and yeah, 4 brothers, and 3 out of 4 of them are 2 out of 4 of them are in the Marines right now, and 3 out of 4 of them were Marines. So
gotcha.
The one she was staying with worked in SOI he was a sergeant in the motor pool, and he had no clue I was, and so kind of backing up. So I got a chance to go to AMC a second time.
Okay.
After I got taken leave, they kind of understood.
Right.
They truly kind of like, all right, you know, you failed the first time, so like, we can let you go back. And so they let me go back. And during that time, I was in AMC, and I might be getting some of this wrong. Sorry, Theo, if I get it the timeline completely wrong. You know, but I was in AMC, and I was a student at the time, so my schedule was. Once you're in AMC, you're not a part of the unit anymore.
Okay.
So basically, you're kind of only doing your own thing. Right. But you stay at the barracks and you stay with your buddies, but you don't go to formation. You don't do any of the training that unit does. You're just solely a student again.
Okay.
And so that I kind of had my own schedule, and so that's what I kind of had my time.
Some free time.
Yeah. And so, that's when I met Theo, and we kind of just hit it off, and we went to go see a movie, and from there we.
How'd y'all actually did y'all meet like online or what?
Yeah, we met on online, and
Gotcha.
she is from Northern California,
Okay.
and her brother, like I said, works in the motor pool in SOI. And what was funny is, she was staying there for the summer, and we were, I don't know if we're dating or we were just talking at that point.
Mm-hmm.
I think we were dating, but she said where her brother worked. I'm like, oh, that'd be cool. I was in AMC in SOI at the time,
Right.
so we're like in the same vicinity. I was like, dude, that'd be so cool. That'd be crazy if like we met.
Yeah.
We ran into each other. But so come to find out, fast forward a few weeks later, we got these new things called GLTVs, and they're replacing the Humvees. And those are those, like, I don't know if you've seen them. It's
Probably.
But they're the new Humvees now, and if you see like any military exercise, that's what they use now.
Gotcha.
And so we had just got those, and so we were going to get a class. All AMC was going to get a class on how to use them, and like kind of a showcase of what they were. And I was like, man, that'd be crazy if he taught this class. And all of a sudden, we're over there in the motor pool, and I'm kind of like looking around because he has no clue who I am, and he has never met me. Like I'd never met him. And all of a sudden, this little guy, he's not little, but he's like big jacked guy, but he's shorter. And his name tag was Cortana. And I was like, oh my god. So I was like, he had no clue who I was, so I'm like, screwed in.
You know who he was.
I was like, I know what I'm doing. You don't know what I'm doing, So but yeah.
Gotcha. So how many other deployments did you go on in your time? You were there for 5.5 years?
5 years and 5 months.
5 years and 5 months. So yeah, one month short.
So basic deployment basic contract is 4 years. And so usually in those 4 years you go on 2 deployments. And so my 2 deployments was I went on the 31st MU, Japan, and then we did like a year, almost a year of a workup so basically your entire Marine Corps career is a workup to the deployment. You go on deployment and then you go and work up to another deployment.
I got
and
you.
Basically that time span works into 4 years.
Okay.
And so that's basically your time span. But the other workup was like really, really long. And I think it was like almost a year, a little over a year, then we went deployed to
gotcha.
Australia. And so that was a UDP to Australia. And I forgot what UDP stands for. But basically, you're on land. So you're not at the sea. You're not on patrol. Basically, what we did was train with the Australian Army, and we saw their tactics, and we went to our tactics. And what we did was, majority of our deployment was training the Filipino Marines.
Okay.
And so they were fighting ISIS in their country, in the mountains of their country, and they came to us to kind of refresh because they're very good in the jungle, but they're not very trained on like CQB tactics, like in a city, and that's kind of where they were fighting. So they decided to come to Australia while we were there, and the Marines are crazy. The difference, I didn't know this, but the difference between the Marine Corps and the Australian Army on how we clear a room is completely night and day.
Really?
The Marine Corps is blow the door open with a grenade and rush as many people as you have in at a time. Like just go fast, and you're in, and you just take it's basically shock and awe. You just surprise the enemy.
You're right.
The Australians are basically, so when they come up to the door, it's honestly a lot smarter, because
Probably safer.
when our experience of breaching and clearing is Fallujah and all these Middle Eastern countries, and we had to clear whole cities.
Right.
And so we don't have time to take our time. And
That's
they're
true.
sitting there waiting for us already. So
especially whenever they want y'all to clear or want the Marines to clear like 10 houses a day.
Exactly.
That kind of stuff.
And
Or
so
10 buildings a day.
You don't have time to take your time and do
Right,
that.
yeah.
And the logistic, like, it's kind of being morbid, but the logistical aspect is there are a lot of Marines. And so you
can throw it.
You can throw as many people.
Yeah.
To
be able to accomplish that. Yeah.
Exactly. Mission accomplishment is first before,
life,
which sucks.
Yeah.
That's how it is.
It's the reality of it.
It's the reality of it. But the Australian Army is very, very a lot smaller, and they were in Afghanistan and Iraq as well, and they had their fair share of. They're very, very, very professional, and it was funny because most of the Australian Army are like, I want to say grown. They're like 30 years old,
right?
And we're sitting here 18, 19, 20 years old.
This is how you do it, all right?
And so we're exchanging notes, and it was just it's just funny, like the age difference.
Right. Yeah.
So it was just pretty crazy. So
Gotcha.
we kind of taught them a lot. And then I kind of had a unique experience in the Marine Corps because I didn't just do 2 deployments. I went on another deployment to the UAE. And I went there for about three months, and we taught the Emirati Army. They're just formed in 2012. And so basically my entire Marine Corps career was helping other nations' militaries to see kind of what we do and how we exploit ourselves.
Right.
And then basically holding it, like being security for other things.
Right.
So I didn't go on any combat deployments, but I was security.
Yeah.
I was a security.
You're still doing stuff.
Yeah.
You weren't working admin, that's for sure.
That's for sure. Yeah. But I'm just saying, like that's kind of like it's kind of an interesting Marine Corps career to where we taught a lot of people, a lot of nations. I got to go a lot of cool places.
Yeah.
And, the coolest place I think I've been was when we got deployed to the border, and that was my last kind of deployment.
Yeah.
And we got deployed to the border, and we basically apprehending illegal immigrants.
Can't imagine. I mean, I don't know if if they have people down there now. From what I know of, they don't yet, but they do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah.
The National Guard's over there right now.
That's right. But that just happened like a few months ago, right?
No, the only reason I know is because my buddy, who I served with, he transferred over to the National Guard, and he's been at the border for like a year now.
Oh, I mean, they're in the right spot. I mean, I really wish we would, focus our efforts more on that, because I feel like that's the more pressing problem right now.
Mm-hmm.
But
he's on the Texas National Guard, so he's been over there for a long time.
Gotcha. So, how was the process of phasing out of getting out of the military? How did that go? The whole vaccine debacle.
Was interesting, because the reason I was in for so long, right? Because when we were in the UAE is 2020, and we were in the middle of the desert, and that's when literally when we were in the UAE is when lockdown started.
Right.
And we had no clue what the hell was going on.
Yeah.
And we only got secondhand information from everything. There's no jobs. Everyone's closed down. There's no toilet paper. Like everything is like it's like a.
You're just hearing about it.
I'm
You're
just hearing about it, and I was like,
yeah.
"How am I? I'm supposed to be getting out in like 6 months.
This is what I'm getting into.
Yeah. How am I supposed to find a job?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna like. And then the Marine Corps was like, you know what? While we were in, we were all gathered around our phones, and we didn't even have a phone. Like our staff sergeant, he had our phone.
Oh, okay.
And he's like, you guys got word, like an email from somebody saying that from the Marine Corps, they're offering a one-time 1-year extension, and they don't ever do this, just a 1-year extension on your contract. So you could just extend for 1 year to wait till this lockdown goes away, so you can. So I'm like, you know what? Screw it, I'll just do that. And a lot of people didn't, and they were fine, But I just kind of got scared, and I want to have stability, and and I wanted to. I was coming in from the UAE, and I had like 3-4 months before I had to even get out. So that's like I hadn't even started basically my process. So I was very behind. So I'm like, I'll just use this year to get out of the military.
Right.
And so basically that's what I did. But then my wife got pregnant, and basically the year I was in, she was pregnant. Like the year I extended, she was pregnant. And my daughter would be born a month after my extension would be. I would get out in that September, and she would be due in October.
In October, yeah.
And so, you know what? I was like, is there any way I can extend for the birth of my child? And they're like, yes. But the closest, like the shortest time we have is 6 months, and so I extended for another 6 months, and so that's why I was in you for a year and 5 years and 5 months.
Right.
And so I did that, and I went on another kind of. My unit deployed, and I went on to security for a naval vessel, and I did that for about 6 months. Okay. I went down to San Diego, and I was a sergeant of the guard for a specific a couple of naval vessels, and basically just was security guard, and did that, and that was pretty chill. But then it kind of worked out because it kind of helped me get out of the military with take care of what I need to take care of and kind of prepare.
I got you.
Because before I was like had 3 months and figure it out.
Right. Yeah.
And so I kind of liked how I got out, because the process of getting out of the military is a long and lengthy process, and they make it. I feel like they make it as hard as possible, so you get discouraged and don't want to get out.
You just like screw it. I'm just staying.
Yeah, and just stay in.
Yeah.
I'll just be a lifer.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Gotcha. So you got out in. When did you get out? November or October?
So I went on terminal leave. So I had a bunch of leave days saved up, and you can basically take your leave days, and you basically get out early.
Okay.
But my contract wasn't up till January 2022. So I got November 21 is when I got out.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. And whenever you got out, what was the so you were in California for a little bit, and then you decided to leave that cesspool of a state and come back to the great state of Texas.
Yeah, I had a house in California on base, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do until I was like, well, am I going to go to school? Am I, what do I do?
Right.
Because I have a brand new baby, and I have to support
my
wife and my baby.
Gotta get a job.
Gotta get a job, and what's a job,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
had a job for 5 years that I no longer have.
I was forced to have this job.
Yeah.
I couldn't get fired from this job. So I was like, man, it kind of was a scary aspect to me just to move to a completely different state, even though I had connections in the state, and there's a lot of talk of like us moving different places, but I thought it would be just the most
prudent,
easiest way to get out and have the most resources at home to help us take care of the kid and all that stuff.
The one kid at the time. And then 3 months later.
No foreshadowing there. And so we decided to move to Texas, and I got a job as a superintendent for a custom home building kind of company for two guys, and I was basically the superintendent. I had no clue I knew how to build a house, like I knew what it took, but I didn't know like specifics, ins and outs, and that's kind of what they taught me, and it kind of shaped what I'm doing now. So I'm grateful for that. They gave me the opportunity to do that. They offered me $4,000 a month just to move down there and just be their superintendent.
Right.
And it was a pretty big leap of faith for them to
take me on
to allow me to do that. So I'm grateful for that. So.
And then now you're pretty much doing the same thing. You're construction manager for the same company that I'm at.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah. Which is funny because the whole application process.
Yeah, that was weird. That was so weird because like I honestly don't think anybody believes us whenever we tell them that we did not plan it.
No.
Like it was. So I filled out, or you filled out the application on Indeed, right?
Yep.
And then you didn't.
No. Because I knew my cues.
That's right. Yeah, you knew my cues.
You did Indeed, I think. Right?
Yeah. Well, so I had the interview at KHOV.
Oh yeah.
And I went there. Yes. You sent me Mike.
You.
Yes. Yeah. I went through that interview, and they said they didn't have any space or whatever. And then so I texted the guy that I interviewed. He was like, this company's hiring, this company. And then I eventually went to. I applied pretty much that same day at the company that I work at now. And then it was like maybe 3 days later, you call me, you're like, I got a job interview. And I was like, oh yeah, where you going? And you're like, this place called First America Homes, pretty much doing the same thing that I've been doing, just at a more like structured and corporate style company.
Yeah.
And I was like, No freaking way.
You kidding?
It's the same company that I just applied to.
Yeah.
You were just like, what? and so yeah, then it was just kind of all downhill. Well, not really all downhill, but we've been working there for
over a year.
Yeah, it's been like a year and 2 months for me, so it's been like probably a year and 3 months, 4 months for you.
Starting in June, so.
Right. So what's next? What other plans you got for the rest, like career wise?
That's kind of up in the air, Like I'm going to school, going to Sam Houston State, represent. Criminal justice, going for criminal justice. Kind of have a passion for animals, and I want to kind of do what I kind of working towards is game warden. Texas game warden. That'd be right now.
Right.
It might change. So I kind of started school with a degree in animal
science.
Not animal science, but it was like biology. No,
Okay.
It was animal science. Animal science. My first class was like contemporary or molecular biology.
Oh,
And I was like, that's not good for me.
that's not good for me.
I haven't been in school for like 6 years, so
The first class you get put into is
molecular biology.
I
So
have no idea what I'm doing here.
like that's not even a basic class. I couldn't even pass my math class in high school. So so I decided to change my major to criminal justice because you can qualify for game warden, criminal justice, and kind of what I'm doing right now. But I kind of want to do, potentially, start a business in ranching and working towards that and gaining land. And we kind of started this small little thing for roping steers called 60s Cattle Company. Kind of took a hold since funds are not quite there.
Right.
Kind of we just had roping steers, had about 35 head of roping steers, and we kind of put on some ropings here and there. But our main supplier decided to get sick on us and kind of stopped putting on ropings, and we couldn't. It was kind of hard to find people who wanted to rent cattle.
Right.
And I'm not necessarily in it 100% since I have so much else going on.
Gotcha.
So kind of put that on pause until we get our own land to where we can house our cattle.
And you don't got to be looking around for
exactly.
places
We don't
to
have
put
to
them.
be on that contingency to where like, ooh, is this guy happy? Does he want us to move our cattle out?
Right.
And so it's kind of what I'm kind of working towards.
Gotcha. So that pretty much brings us up to speed to present day. Yeah.
Here I am.
Cool. All right. Well, now we've gotten to the portion of the show where we're gonna talk about. I got a few headlines picked out that we're gonna discuss. Read some articles and get our sort of perspective on stuff that's going on right now in the world. So the first headline we got are the fires in Hawaii, in Maui specifically.
Yeah.
From CNN, it says these wildfires are the deadliest in U.S. history, more than a century, surpassing California's 2018 Camp Fire, according to National Fire Protection Association, or NFPA. While FEMA earlier Saturday said it was premature to assign even an approximate dollar amount to the damage done on Maui, the governor estimated the losses approach about $6 billion. Firefighters have made progress against the three largest wildfires, but the deadly fire in hard-hit Lahaina, something like that. Lahaina, covering more than 2,000 acres, was only 85% contained by Sunday afternoon. Officials have confirmed up to 99 deaths from the fires.
That's wild.
Yeah, literally wildfires.
It's a wildfire.
And in the same article, it has listed a few questionable things that have went on in the duration of this fire. For example, while the deadly fire spread rapidly into neighborhoods, the largest siren system in the world was apparently silent. Now, I don't know exactly what the siren system is put in place for in Maui. Like, I don't know if it's there for tornadoes, earthquakes, or hurricanes. I don't know if it's there for all of that or just for specific things. I know here in Magnolia we don't have a siren system for wildfires. So in 2011, there was just smoke in the air,
Yeah.
and we was like, oh, everything's on fire.
That's fire.
Yeah, that's fire. maybe we should move. And they would send out evacuation orders as the fire progressed throughout the city and the counties, but we didn't have a sort of siren that went on. So I mean, I don't exactly know. Like I said, if they have a siren system designated for the wildfire, but if they do, that is very odd. That that siren system is there for that job.
Yeah.
And it just so happens that it didn't work on that. And it happened the same thing a few years ago whenever they had that scare of the nuclear, like the ICBMs inbound sort of situation that happened. I don't know if you remember that.
Yep.
But like they basically had like a whole like broadcast that went over like the national television there in Hawaii, and
everybody's phones and everything.
Everybody's phones got this alert that there was ICBMs inbound, and it was nuts. It was crazy. And I mean, maybe that has something to do with why the siren system wasn't working. Like maybe that system just isn't the best.
Well,
but what do you think about it?
I don't know. I think maybe it has to do with. I mean, I don't know how old these sirens are. Like when they were put in place. Like would the sirens be from World War II, from put in place after that?
After Pearl Harbor,
after Pearl Harbor, and like how many times have these sirens been used?
Yeah.
And my thing is like, how common is wildfires in Hawaii?
Yeah, you don't really hear about them a whole lot.
I'm just like, I'm curious. Like, I don't know exactly. I've never heard of really I'm sure
not a big one. Like for the most part, you're hearing wildfires in like California. I mean, that's the big one, of course. But you got California sometimes, and Colorado they've had some, and in Montana they've had wildfires, and in Texas, of course, we've had wildfires too.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was pretty odd to hear about wildfires in Hawaii,
and especially Maui. Probably, I think one of their most expensive. I heard, I'm like, forgive me if I'm not speaking correctly, but it's one of their like the most expensive real estate islands.
Oh, really?
Right there, because that's like the most. That's all that stuff was like people's homes. Obviously, like middle class people, and I've heard a lot of things to where. I've seen a lot of posts, and I've seen a lot of people because I have a buddy who I served with who's in Hawaii, and he lives there. He's from there, and he's just pushing these things to where don't sell your land, everyone just stay together, we'll figure it out. But like, is this something that was caused in order for the big companies or whatever to
come in and like acquire the land?
Acquire all the land?
Huh.
Because like I said, I'm not an expert on the fact of that.
Right.
Like, that kind of seems a little fishy.
Yeah.
And I did see an aerial shot of the fires, and it said like it was like the middle of all the fires. It was decimated, and then there was a stretch of land that was green houses where all the most expensive houses were, and they were not caught fire.
Really?
But that might, I'm not disclosing any. Like, I'm not.
Right. Yeah, it's not 100% fact. Like I've seen some really questionable videos, and it's always the videos that are the worst quality. And everybody's all like, "Oh my God, it's this big giant conspiracy," and it's it shows this something. It looks like a plasma welder is being put on this small part of the city. I don't know if it was Maui. I don't know if that's like some other event that happened years prior, because the video was the quality of the video was absolutely garbage, which was probably filmed on an Android. That's probably why. But so I mean. And I've heard rumors that there was this direct energy beam that went all throughout the city that was causing it and all this other stuff. But I mean, I haven't seen enough credible evidence for it. Yeah. I'm not saying it's completely out of the realm of possibility. I mean,
nothing is at this point.
Yeah, all the stuff that's going on, or that has been going on the last couple of years. It's like, I mean, you got to consider everything. The whole thing in Antarctica. What is it, Raytheon? I think Raytheon Technologies, the guy that worked there, he was blowing the whistle on the whole, on this, exactly what they have there, and it's like these, I don't remember exactly what they're called, but these things that are in the ground that can cause massive amounts of surges of energy. And he's saying that they're sending, laser beams into space, and they tested the weapon or whatever that's there, and it apparently caused the Christchurch earthquake in New Zealand.
Oh,
I don't know. I mean, it was the same day, the same time. The events did correlate, but correlation doesn't necessarily mean causation.
Right.
So he could be telling the truth. He could be lying. It's kind of up in the air. I mean, he's got a lot of exposure. I think he was on the Sean Ryan show a few weeks ago, but yeah. So who really knows what actually went on there?
But really, what does piss me off is we can kind of segue into something else. Is that the $700 one-time?
Yeah. So I was going to get to that. It was, from Newsweek. This is from the Newsweek article. It says President Joe Biden is facing renewed criticism for his response to the devastating wildfires on the Hawaiian island of Maui after offering victims a whopping $700 per household in emergency aid. It says political opponents and commentators described the sum as insulting and compared it with the more than $113 billion worth of aid the U.S. has sent to Ukraine as it defends itself against an ongoing Russian invasion. On Monday, the government announced it was sending an additional $200 million in defensive capabilities.
Yep.
So this is what really pisses me off. It is absolutely clear now what the motive is on the whole Russia-Ukraine situation. It's Ukraine. We don't really care about what's going on here, because if we did, we would be sending aid to Hawaii and not freaking Ukraine, where we don't have. We could go into a whole lot of segues and topics into the whole Russia-Ukraine sort of situation. Yeah. But this is a foreign policy issue. And it's been an issue for a long time, even since Reagan, whenever they first introduced the whole, our mission is to spread democracy throughout, the entire world, so that, there would be no communism, no dictatorships. That's whenever it first started. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know if we're still trying to do that sort of thing now, but it seems like it's following the same line of thinking. We have to preserve our best interest, and even though Ukraine isn't a NATO country, we're not in some sort of treaty or obligation to protect them. We're funding this proxy war with them.
Right, but that makes you think, though. Like, what's so important about what's in Ukraine?
Right.
That makes that they're fighting so hard.
And don't look at all the Hunter Biden stories and his links with Burisma, those holdings, and yep. And don't look at the tax returns that show that Joe Biden took $5 million from a Ukrainian oil company. Don't look at that.
That's out there. That's not relevant.
No, that's not relevant. No. But whenever your house is burned down in the U.S., don't worry. Joe Biden's got your best interest at heart. You're going to get about $700. Hopefully, it repairs everything. To account for your entire house, your land. If you lost a loved one, some cars, $700 ought to be able to cover it.
Should cover it.
Yeah, I think the math of the whole, how many people were in. Or who are in Maui, and you add the $700 per household, I think that adds up to maybe 20 million, something like that. Like, yeah. Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
20 million to people who are actually suffering in the U.S. now.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas we just sent another 200 million in defense capabilities to Ukraine.
Yeah.
It's clear their motives.
Oh yeah, but it's. I just saw something the other day. Quite a bit of things the other day, like a lot of people say, like, Ukraine, the fake war,
Mm-hmm.
Where a lot of videos coming back to where the nightlife of Ukraine,
yeah,
Lviv,
yeah,
and what's shown on the news is like a war-torn country, but then there's someone videoing Lviv the night of, and it's like bustling nightlife and people are partying. a
What
bunch
exactly
of
is going on?
military-age males running around. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like if there's a bunch of those guys just partying it up. You know, if my country was being invaded, I wouldn't be.
No, absolutely
I
not.
wouldn't be.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, we're different, right?
Yeah. I mean, I can't attest to what it would be like or what it feels like to be invaded, of course, but I can imagine that would be the last thing on everybody's mind is to get out and go clubbing whenever your country's being invaded by Russia. And I'm not saying Russia is right in its invasion of Ukraine, but what I will say is the reason Joe Biden is putting so much emphasis on Ukraine, it may be an aspect of that maybe we feel guilty because we've provoked this whole thing with since back whenever Bush was in office, and he stated to, I think it was Gorbachev at the time, that NATO would not move an inch to the east. And what did we do? We moved NATO 1,000 miles, to where now there are several countries that are bordering Russia that are now NATO allies. That's like it's exactly the same situation as the Cuban Missile Crisis. Yeah. They moved their ICBMs and nukes into Cuba, and what did we do? It nearly caused World War III, nearly caused nuclear fallout.
Yep.
I mean, thanks to my boy John F. Kennedy, R.I.P., they were able to get that whole situation squared away, and we avoided that, of course. But I mean, why should we expect Russia to act any differently than what we did during that time? Yep. You know, like if I don't know, it's such a nuanced topic because there's so many moving parts and there's so much history behind it that nobody really knows about. Everybody just thinks that, and even before the war, it was like, you know, Ukraine was known for its corruption. It was a really corrupt country. And now all of a sudden everybody's just on the Ukraine train that, oh yeah, you know, we need to send everything that we can to possibly help these people. And you know, I do feel for the people of the country that are caught up in this war. Yeah. But at the same time, I'm like, we got so much stuff going on here that we can't afford to be meddling in the stuff that is, you know, halfway around the country whenever we have so many other problems going on in our country, in our own country. Yeah. But that's neither here nor there. You know, hopefully, whenever election time comes around, we'll some of that stuff will get laid out, and hopefully, we'll have a sort of regime change. But anyways, so we'll get into to another topic here. It's kind of on a lighter note. It's more of like a pop culture type topic, you know, because we're hip. Are we? We're hip. Yeah, we're hip, dude. Anyways,
it's lit.
It's lit, baby. It's lit. Topic number 2. Micheal Oher, who was the star offensive lineman he went to Ole Miss and he played for the Ravens for a while. Damn good offensive lineman, but he was the subject of the movie The Blind Side. Starring Sandra Bullock and Tim McGraw and all that kind of stuff. But he came out and he accused his adopted parents of lying about him being adopted and taking the profits from the movie, even though he wasn't actually, and stating that he wasn't actually adopted, but he was put into a conservatorship.
Because he was over 18, right?
Right, yeah. Right. And so whenever that first came out, of course, I thought, wow, you know, this is kind of crazy. I mean, I can definitely see some people doing that, you know, taking advantage of seeing how big this guy is and seeing the potential athletic capabilities and taking advantage of that. And I can definitely see that happening. But so what do you think? What was your first sort of impression on how this all played out at the beginning?
My first impression of it was, I mean, kind of the same thing as yours. Like I wouldn't put it past people to do.
Right.
But I heard, and I don't know, you know, you might be lying, but the what's his name? The dad of Sean, he came out with a statement saying, kind of explained that, yes, it was a, what do you call it? The
conservatorship.
Conservatorship.
Yeah.
But as it pertains to the not getting proceeds for the movie. He said no one got proceeds for the movie.
Right.
We got proceeds from the book.
Yeah.
And he said everyone. He said it was a specific number, and everyone got an equal share from the book.
So yeah, from I think it's called the Daily Memphian or something like that.
Yeah.
A news source in Tennessee where the Tuohys live. It says Sean Tuohy's talking about it. He says we didn't make any money off the movie, and he says, well, Michael Lewis, the author of the book that inspired the movie, gave us half of his share.
Yeah.
And everybody in the family got an equal share, including Michael.
Yeah.
And it was about $14,000 each. He also said that, explaining the whole conservatorship situation, he said the only way Michael could go, or the people said that the only way that Michael could go to Ole Miss was if he was actually part of the family. And adding that because Oher was 18 at the time, the conservatorship was a way to make that happen legally, since he was too old to be legally adopted. And he said that they contacted lawyers who had told them that they couldn't adopt over the age of 18. The only thing we could do was to have a conservatorship. And he said they were so concerned to the whole situation, and they went as far as to make the biological mother come to court and confirm this. And then he goes into he says that we're devastated. It's upsetting to think we would make money off of any of our children. He told a local outlet, but we're going to love Michael at 37 just like we loved him at 16. And I mean, honestly, that's such it's a really unfortunate situation for pretty not legally adopted, but they see him. It seems like they see him as his son, and of course they could be playing their own angle. They could be playing an angle
for a news outlet, so
right?
They could say what they think they want you to hear, but I mean, honestly, it doesn't sound that
far off. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely plausible. I think that they actually do. They do care for Michael in the same, in like the way that they say that they do. Yeah. Otherwise, they would have. I feel like it would have been a sort of different story. They would have went after him more if they actually were trying to play that angle.
And I don't think they would have explained it to the extent of what they explained it in the news.
Right. Yeah. Explain about the whole book situation. Yeah.
Then again, he might be lying. You know what I mean? Like you said, he could just say what for a news outlet, but
but I mean,
vetted,
right? Yeah,
everything he says is going to be vetted, and he's got to know that. So, but I think, it's a very, like you said, it's a very interesting situation.
Yeah, I seen a video of the son, SJ, the son of Sean Tuohy, who was in the movie. I mean, he wasn't himself in the movie, but he was played by an actor in the movie, of course. But he was saying that it really wasn't a surprise to him, and that Michael has tried to do this on several accounts, and but he's had the same sort of the same outlook on it. It's yeah, we were expecting it, and it is unfortunate that he's kind of going through what he's going through, and that he's accusing us of doing this. But at the same time, I still see him as my brother. We're gonna like you said, we're gonna love him at 37 just as much as we loved him at 16 whenever he first came into our lives. So, I mean. It seems like a wholesome family, but I mean, we've seen before that wholesome families can be completely full of shit.
Yeah.
So
a lot of skeletons in the closet.
Yeah. So, I mean, as the situation progresses, I'm sure we'll find out more. Hopefully the truth comes to light and the actual story comes out true. But if it comes out that they profited off of him being this super athletic guy, then. Yeah, that kind of sucks.
It does suck,
but it is what it is. We'll see as that situation progresses. Topic number 3. Mr. Donald Trump. I don't know if you've seen this or not, but he plans to skip the Republican primary debates for interview with Tucker Carlson.
I saw that.
It says this is from TMJ4. Citing multiple unnamed sources, NBC News reports in the last 24 hours, Trump told people he has made up his mind to skip the debate. He also posted on Truth Social on Thursday, saying he is polling well ahead of his rivals, and that Reagan didn't do it, and neither did others. People know my record. One of the one of the best, the best record ever, in the nice Trump way to say it. So and he said, so why would I debate? And I have conflicting feelings about this, but I can understand where he's coming from, because indeed he is polling at 53%.
Yeah.
Right now, there's no other Republican candidate that has a remote chance. Yeah. DeSantis probably had the best shot at the beginning, but he's screwed the pooch absolutely completely. He's out. Like I think he's dropped so many points that Vivek is starting to kind of creep up on him. Which, I mean, I think Vivek would be a pretty good candidate. He is really young. I think he's like one of the youngest candidates to run so far, but. I think he's kind of playing the angle of to be a VP possibly, if at the least a cabinet member, but you know, it's a really a bad thing because, but the flip side to it is Joe Biden is not going to debate, you know, the other Democrats that are running for president. And it's not out of the ordinary for an incumbent to not debate same party candidates that are coming in to challenge him.
Yeah.
It's not out of the ordinary, but at the same time, we are living in very out of ordinary circumstances. You know, inflation is at an all-time high. Interest rates are through the roof. Gas prices are through the roof. People's dollar is not worth what it used to be even 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. People are having a really hard time whenever it comes to economic, and the fact that we're sending all this money to Ukraine and we're still dealing with all the economic issues that we're dealing with. People are really, I mean, I feel like people are upset. People are upset about the whole situation that's going on.
I'd say so.
Yeah.
I'd say so. They're pretty upset.
And, you know, he has to, I feel like he has an obligation to sort of address these sort of things in that debate.
Right, but you think that's the best way to address that? Like in a debate? Like where you're sitting there arguing over conflicting events, to where everyone's going to overpromise.
Right.
Everyone that goes to a debate expecting everyone just to hear what everyone wants to hear, and that's what they're going to say.
That's true.
And so they're not going to say anything negative. They're only going to say everything negative about other people.
Right.
So like, what's the point of going to a debate if he knows that he can go to his rallies and express what he wants to express, and people are gonna hear about it anyway because he's obviously very widely popular.
Yeah.
And so I think he's decided that he's already expressed what he's going to do if he wins, and he doesn't really need to debate anybody about it.
Right. And I mean, of course, I want him to debate. One, because I really think he should answer for the status of the country. Like, the State of the Union address was just stupid. It was really dumb, really dumb. I did not enjoy the State of the Union address. Half of it was bullshit, and half of it was just talking points to try to dunk on Republicans. But my other motive for wanting Joe Biden to debate is because RFK Jr. is there, and RFK Jr. is, if y'all don't know about him, y'all really need to go check him out. He's a surprising one. He's really caught a lot of people's attention with the stuff that he's been talking about. He's very, very, of course, Kennedy-style Democrat. You know, he's the son of Robert F. Kennedy, who was the brother of John F. Kennedy. Mm-hmm. And if you don't know the story behind those two, JFK, my personal belief, was killed by a CIA asset. I mean, that's confirmed. You know, Lee Harvey Oswald had connections to the CIA. Mm-hmm. It's just true. And R.F. Kennedy was also killed by a person who was a CIA asset. So there's been a lot of things that have happened with that single family in our country. But he comes in and he starts saying them RFK things, saying that, you know, the CIA needs to be, you know, pretty much dismantled and tossed into the winds. Mm-hmm. You know, coming after, you know, vaccine sort of stuff, and he's not necessarily against vaccines because he's vaccinated, his kids are vaccinated. He just doesn't think that these pharmaceutical companies are being completely transparent with testing and going through the correct process to be able to put these vaccines out there to make them safe for people to actually use.
Yeah.
and he's very against the way the Democrat Party has been going the last couple of years. How they've been so ingrained in the identity politics of transgenderism, socialist sort of economic policies, climate change, all this other stuff, all the extreme left sort of ways that the Democrat Party has went. He's completely I wouldn't say he's completely against it, but he's just a classic Democrat, what they used to be, and he's not just this complete
yes man, basically.
Yeah. So I think he would wipe the floor with Joe Biden if they ever got into a debate, and that's probably why they're not actually debating.
I think Joe Biden doesn't want to debate because he can't complete sentences.
He can't even walk upstairs. You kidding me? Much less debate.
Surprised he could ride that bike when he said no comment to the best I hope.
Right? Yeah. So, yeah. I wish. I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing for Trump to skip that debate because he is polling very, very high. But
after the debate, will he continue to poll very high?
I think he will, because I think more people watch Tucker Carlson than they would that debate. It's like if both those things happen at the same time, if they happen on the same day, the same night, in the same time period, there would be so many more people that watch that Tucker Carlson and Donald Trump interview than those Republican primary debates, and I think he'll just go up. That's just any sort of podcast or any platform that gives Donald Trump a platform will just go absolutely nuts, because he is pretty much the most interesting person in the world, or in the world for the U.S. right now, at least. So I don't know. I think it's not the most terrible strategy. Of course, he should be able to go to the debate stage and debate these other Republican, challenges and everything. But honestly, whenever the Blaze did that, the whole interview with those Republican candidates that Tucker Carlson did, it really showed a lot of who are those rhino Republicans still, like Mike Pence. I was watching an interview with him on Jordan Peterson, and I was really I was vibing with what he was saying, like a lot of stuff he was saying, and then they got to the Ukraine issue, and he started saying, we're not sending enough. Like, we're not sending enough? Are you serious, right? How can you be how can you be so unaware or so self-aware that a clear liberal or Democrat talking point about giving aid to Ukraine, you're gonna put your chips into that pile? We're not giving enough freaking. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Come on, man. Like that.
Read the room.
read the room. Read the freaking room.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I think Trump was probably making the right decision on that in that aspect. So, but we'll see. We'll see how that affects his polling rate and all that kind of stuff.
For sure.
But anyways, we're gonna cut right there.
Nice.
I'm gonna see what the time is on this. So 30 minutes. So we're at about 2 hours. So I had that other portion, but I don't think we need.
What was it?
This is the friendship portion.
The friendship?
Yeah.
What was it?
I was gonna ask you a bunch of questions about about me, see if you knew them.
Oh shit.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll just skip that for now. But I'll go ahead and do a sort of sign off. Well, all right, guys. That's about all we got for you guys today. I appreciate, Dalton, you coming in and sharing your story, and appreciate you being here to kind of give some pretty good discourse on the topics that we had.
Thanks for having me. Hope I wasn't too boring.
No, absolutely. I think it went really well, man. Hopefully we'll have you on here again soon. So.
I ran out of things to talk about. So.
Nah, we won't run out of things to talk about. But anyways, guys, I appreciate y'all tuning in. Appreciate you guys watching. If y'all can, go like and subscribe to this video on YouTube, and go follow In Real Time Pod on Instagram. And we will see you guys later. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Thanks. Cut!